Howdy again everyone, and today I'm really excited to be showing you another incredibly expensive yet also potentially incredible Canon supertelephoto lens, the new RF 100-300mm f2.8 L IS USM. It's for their mirrorless RF mount cameras, full frame or aps-c, and it's $9,500 in the US, but £11,500 in the UK, so a shopping trip to New York might be in order if you want to get this one. I'd like to thank Canon very much for loaning me this lens for a week for testing, although as usual this is a totally independent review. What's this lens's deal then? Well, a few years ago I tested out this monster, the Sigma 120-300mm f2.8 sports lens, and unsurprisingly the images it was able to get were amazing. Its massive size and weight of almost 3.5 kilograms made it a bit of a nightmare to carry around with you though, and here is where Canon have worked magic with their new lens. Theirs is shorter and at only 2.5 kilograms, much lighter to carry and to shoot handheld. Oh, and of course it zooms out further too, which is especially useful. But still, the kind of out of focus compressed backgrounds you can get at 300mm and f2.8 are really quite astonishing. This lens could be a real monster for sports and event photography, wedding and portrait photography, video work, and short-range wildlife photography. Professionals in any of those fields might well lap this thing up, and wealthy amateurs will have just enormous fun. Honestly, it's so good to have a lens like this which doesn't weigh too much, although still shooting for a long time will be eventually a little tiring. Here is the lens itself. It's big but not gigantic, and quite a handsome monster too. The lens is based on a metal mount, of course, and is extensively weather sealed. It comes complete with a very sturdy, adjustable tripod collar, and on the sides we get the usual array of supertelephoto focus and stabilization controls, including focus preset and the usual 3 stabilization modes: normal, tripod, and mode 3, which only kicks in as you take the picture, which can make it easier to track your subject. Here's the stabilization in action. This footage, taken on a slightly windy day, is unstabilized, and here I turn the stabilization on. Considering we're shooting at 300mm, this looks very good to me, about 5 stops equivalent of stabilization I think, vital for shooting telephoto. Then comes the rubberized focus ring, which turns very smoothly and responds fantastically well to being turned. Here you can see that the lens displays virtually no focus breathing when you're zoomed in, and only a tiny bit when you're zoomed out, which will be useful to video makers. You won't be surprised to know that this lens's autofocus system is one of the best available today. It really is lightning fast, silent, and very accurate. It had no problems for me in tracking moving subjects such as animals or attractive wives on country lanes, so paired up with one of Canon's hottest sports cameras like the R3, I have no doubt it would cover any kind of sports action unquestioningly. Next comes the rubberized zoom ring. It turns very evenly and easily, although it makes a scratching, whooshing sound as you do so. And in front of that comes a control ring and lens function/focus preset buttons. The front of the lens and the lens's hood are trimmed in rubber for extra bump protection. I really like the lens's front filter size of 112mm. Even though that's a huge size for a filter and they'll be pretty expensive, it's still hugely reassuring to know that you could put a protective filter over that front element. In fact, I was surprised Canon didn't do that with my loaner copy. They must really trust me. It's also good to be able to use other filters here, like circular polarizers. The lens comes with a high quality shoulder strap case also. Overall, this is exactly the kind of top level build quality and functionality you would expect of a lens in this price range, and it's a dream come true to use. Alright, let's see if the image quality can match up. I'll start by testing it on a full frame camera, my Canon EOS R5 with its 45 megapixel sensor. In-camera corrections are turned on. I tested the lens thoroughly here, and the results are dead simple on full frame. At every point in the lens's zoom range, straight from f2.8, it is razor sharp with excellent contrast, from the middle of the image into the corners, from 100mm all the way to 300mm. The lens stays this sharp down to f11, where a little softness creeps in due to diffraction, and it gets softer again at f16 for the same reason. A perfect performance on a high-resolution full-frame camera here. Okay, well, let's see how it does on a more challenging 32.5 megapixel aps-c sensor on my EOS R7 camera. At 100mm and f2.8, the lens's sharpness is not quite as perfect as it was on full frame, but it's still excellent. Corner image quality is very slightly softer again, but still pretty good. Stop down to f4 though, and sharpness becomes pretty much perfect from the corners and back into the middle. The lens stays this sharp down to f8, but from f11 it starts getting much softer again due to diffraction. Let's zoom in to 300mm, it's a similar story. We see sharpness and contrast which are very good at f2.8 but not quite perfect, and it looks the same in the corners. However, stop down to f4 for sharpness to look excellent again from the corners and into the middle, and at f5.6 sharpness is perfect. Once again, stop down to f11 or beyond to see softness due to diffraction. So it's a great performance on high-resolution aps-c, although you do have to stop down a little for the best results here. Okay, let's turn off in-camera corrections and take a look at distortion and vignetting. At 100mm, there's virtually none of either to be seen, although at f4, the corners do look a little brighter. At 300mm, we see a touch of pincushion distortion here, and vignetting is a little more noticeable at f2.8. Again, at f4, the corners brighten up. Still, a good performance here. The lens's minimum focus distance is 1.8 meters, which is about average but not spectacularly close here. At f2.8, close-up image quality is a little softer, but at f4, the excellent sharpness returns. Let's see how the lens works against bright light. At the widest angle, there's virtually no flaring of any kind to be seen here, which is excellent. Zoom in and a little pops up, but it's nothing too serious. Let's take a look at the quality of this lens's bokeh, an absolutely vital question for a piece of kit like this, and as you'd expect, there are precisely zero problems here. Even very difficult backgrounds, such as foliage, are rendered softly and even in transitional zones. Talking about transitional zones, let's hear about longitudinal chromatic aberration. At f2.8 it is apparent, as you can see here, but at f4 any traces of colour fringing on bokeh highlights is gone. Overall, well, Canon's latest supertelephoto lenses continue in their tradition of being incredibly expensive but also completely out of this world when it comes to both build quality and image quality, functionality and general usefulness. Anyone who can afford it will be looking to get their hands on this lens, and I can imagine it becoming an optic that makes the lives of a lot of event, sports and portrait photographers easier. It's really going to make your images jump out from the competition, so there's nothing else left to say here but that it comes highly recommended. Do you think I enjoy the drudgery of having to test these incredible, wonderful camera lenses? I don't enjoy it. I love it, and I'm going to be doing it for a long time to come, but it's still very time consuming and costly to do, and that's why I love my Patreon supporters so much. They make such a big difference to keeping these lens reviews going, from little cheap manual focus lenses to expensive behemoths such as these. Check out my Patreon page in the description below. Supporters get all kinds of exclusive bonus content, including special videos, pictures and early access. Take it easy, everyone.